In 1950, Detroit produced half the world's cars, paid the nation's highest wages, and was home to 1.8 million people, earning it the nickname Paris of the Midwest. Decades later, more than 65% of its population has vanished. Tens of thousands of buildings stand abandoned, and the city has weathered historic riots, foreign auto competition, white flight, and America's largest municipal bankruptcy. Many American cities have faced decline, but why are Detroit's problems mathematically locked in? The answer begins at the exact moment its fortunes peaked. Detroit, in 1950, stood at the center of the American industrial map. With 1.8 million residents, it ranked as the nation's fourth largest city, outpacing most European capitals. The city's economy revolved around three companies: General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. Together, these firms produced half of all automobiles on the planet. That year, the average Detroit household earned more than anywhere else in the United States. Prosperity was not an abstract idea. It was visible in the city's dense neighborhoods, bustling factories, and grand boulevards. The label Paris of the Midwest captured a sense of ambition and confidence, but also hinted at a city built for a global stage. The big three automakers didn't just provide jobs, they shaped the city's tax base, funded its schools, and underwrote its museums and public works. Henry Ford's assembly line had already transformed manufacturing, and the $5 a day wage introduced decades earlier still echoed in the city's broad middle class. Detroit's factories drew workers from across the country and around the world, fueling waves of migration and demographic growth. By mid-century, nearly 300,000 people worked in manufacturing jobs within city limits, many of them building cars destined for every continent. This concentration of economic power created a city scaled for growth, sprawling neighborhoods, vast industrial corridors, and an infrastructure designed for millions. Detroit's identity and future seemed inseparable from the fortunes of its auto giants. In 1950, the numbers told a story of unrivaled strength, a metropolis at its zenith, with little hint of the forces that would soon begin to unravel its foundation. Detroit's unraveling did not arrive in a single blow. In July 1967, 5 days of unrest left 43 dead, thousands arrested, and entire commercial corridors in ruins. The riots' aftermath accelerated a migration already underway as white residents and businesses moved out, seeking security and stability in the suburbs. Over the next decade, the city's racial makeup flipped, and the tax base began to erode at a pace city leaders could not slow. As the 1970s unfolded, Detroit's auto plants faced a new threat from abroad. Japanese car makers, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, introduced smaller, more reliable vehicles that captured American drivers and cut deep into the Big Three's market share. Factories responded with automation, slashing jobs that had once supported entire neighborhoods. The city's population fell by hundreds of thousands as work dried up and families followed opportunity beyond city limits. Through the 1980s and the 1990s, the pattern only deepened. Each census revealed another steep drop. The city's infrastructure, roads, schools, utilities remained scaled for millions, but fewer and fewer people were left to support it. By 2010, Detroit's population had plunged to just over 700,000, a 61% drop from its peak. When Detroit filed for Chapter 9, bankruptcy in July 2013, it was not a sudden collapse, but a formal recognition of decades of fiscal exhaustion. The filing, the largest of its kind in United States history, laid bare the city's $18 billion in liabilities and a municipal structure no longer matched to its diminished reality. Detroit today is a city defined by absence as much as presence. The latest census counts just over 620,000 residents, less than 1/3 of what the city supported in 1950. This number alone signals a scale of contraction rarely seen in American urban history. Spread across 140 square miles, the remaining population is scattered through neighborhoods built for 2 million people. Streets once lined with houses and shops now lead past empty lots and boarded up buildings. More than 40,000 abandoned structures remain, from crumbling homes to derelict factories. The city's property inventory lists over 70,000 vacant lots, many overtaken by weeds or used as unofficial dumping grounds. Housing values reflect these realities. The median sale price for a home in Detroit hovers around $65,000, a fraction of the national average and far below the cost of new construction. In large sections of the city, homes sell for less than the price of a used car. Some blocks have only a handful of occupied houses. Others are almost entirely empty. The physical infrastructure, roads, water lines, schools, still stretches across the entire city, forcing Detroit to maintain services for a population that no longer exists. Every statistic points to a landscape shaped by decades of departure, with the city's built environment now vastly out of proportion to the number of people left to use it. The numbers are not just markers of decline, they define the daily reality for those who remain. Detroit's municipal structure today is fundamentally mismatched with its reality. The city still maintains 140 square miles of roads, utilities, and public buildings, all designed for 2 million people. However, with fewer than 650,000 residents, the cost of upkeep far outpaces the revenue that can be collected. Water mains run beneath blocks that hold only a handful of occupied homes. Streetlights, police patrols, and sanitation routes stretch across empty neighborhoods, draining resources from areas where people still live. The financial imbalance extends beyond infrastructure. Detroit is locked into pension obligations for tens of thousands of former city workers, benefits promised when the tax base was 3 times its current size. By 2013, the city faced $18 billion in liabilities, including $3.5 billion in unfunded pensions and $5.7 billion in retiree healthcare. Even after bankruptcy, these obligations remain a fixed cost, consuming a large share of the city's annual budget. Raising taxes risks driving out more residents. Cutting services only accelerates decline. Meanwhile, the economic engine that once powered Detroit has moved elsewhere. The big 3 automakers now build most of their vehicles in southern states, Mexico, or overseas. Automation has permanently reduced the number of jobs on the assembly line. The city's best educated young people increasingly leave for tech hubs and growing cities on the coasts, taking their skills and earning power with them. What remains is a labor market with fewer opportunities and a shrinking pool of taxpayers to support the city's legacy costs. These forces combine into a closed loop. As the population falls, the burden on those who stay becomes heavier. The math no longer works. Detroit's challenges are not simply the result of past mismanagement or a single economic shock. They are the product of a structural mismatch between what the city was built to be and what it has become. Every year, fewer residents means less money for city services. As property values fall and people move away, Detroit's tax revenue shrinks. The city responds by cutting services, fewer police patrols, slower trash collection, longer waits for emergency response. These cuts make daily life harder, prompting even more families to leave. Each departure reduces the tax base further, forcing deeper cuts the next year. Schools close, parks are abandoned, and public transit routes disappear, all while fixed costs like pensions and infrastructure maintenance remain. The cycle repeats, revenue drops, services deteriorate, quality of life falls, and more residents exit. For decades, this loop has spun on itself, making it impossible for Detroit to regain the scale or stability it once had. The city's decline is not a single event, but a self-reinforcing system, locked in by the math of loss. Billions of dollars in tax incentives have been poured into Detroit over the past 2 decades, with the hope of sparking a citywide turnaround. Most of these benefits have concentrated downtown, where private investors like Dan Gilbert assembled a portfolio of office towers, tech startups, and renovated landmarks. Midtown's population grew by nearly 20% between 2010 and 2019, but the impact rarely reached the city's vast neighborhoods. Efforts to brand Detroit as a tech hub produced a handful of high-profile openings, yet the sector remains small and struggles to absorb the city's existing workforce. Casino gambling, once touted as a budget fix, generates less revenue than promised and cannot offset the loss of manufacturing jobs or property taxes. The visible gains of new restaurants, stadiums, and offices stand in stark contrast to the tens of thousands of vacant lots and abandoned homes that define most of Detroit's landscape. Even the most ambitious revival strategies have not changed the structural math. A city built for millions, now sustained by a fraction of that number. Detroit's infrastructure still dwarfs its shrunken population, and fiscal deficits remain embedded in every budget cycle. No policy can reset the demographic clock or restore lost industry at scale. The city stands as a caution. Some urban declines outpace the tools we have to reverse them. Share your perspective below.